Okay. Yeah, so just remember to remain muted unless you're speaking, unless I call on you to speak. And if you want to have any like comments or anything or speak on motions during this meeting, just make sure you use the comments and I'll call on people based on the order of the comments. Okay, roll call vote, Vice President Lockings.
Aldi.
Here.
Andrews. Barber.
Here.
Bassam. Bassam. Beaver.
Here.
Buchanan.
Here.
Kale.
Here.
Cheek. Cheek.
Here.
Chew.
Here.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
Crawford.
Here.
Dang.
Here.
Diafodi.
Here.
DePersia.
Here.
Farnham.
Here.
Fort. Fort.
Here.
Garrison. Garrison.
Oh, he's being admitted to the group right now. He's joining right now.
Okay. Hall.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Carumo.
Here.
Langston.
Here.
Lou.
Here.
Little. Little.
Here. Sorry, my mic wasn't working.
McClure. McClure. Okay. Misi.
Here.
Patel.
Here.
Perry.
Here.
Portillo. Portillo, I see. Okay. Randall.
Here.
Sander.
Here.
Sands.
Here.
Spears.
Here.
Fights.
Here.
Teeter. Ash.
Here.
Volano.
Here.
Wesley.
Here.
Woodruff.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no objections, we'll approve the minutes from last week as distributed. Okay, our presenters tonight are Joan Schaffner, the Assistant VP and Campaign Manager in Advancement, and Dr. Mary Lackey, the Interim Vice President for Advancement. If there are no objections, I'll suspend the rules for 10 minutes to allow them to speak. Okay,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
All right, Mary, would you like
Great,
to?
thank you. Yeah, I'll kick it off. Thank you so much for having us today. We've been wanting to reach out, and I appreciate the opportunity to do this through your Zoom meeting. This fall, we are going to be kicking off a capital campaign for UCA. And we're in what we would call the silent phase right now, which means it's not a secret, but it's not announced yet to the public what the theme will be, what the goal will be, and all those things. We're doing fundraising with individuals and with foundations right now. And then with the public kickoff is when we have a big celebration and we announce it to everybody and announce the goal. And it'll be an exciting time because it's the biggest campaign we've ever had in the history of UCA. And we're wanting to talk to you because we want students involved with the kickoff, getting students, at the events that we're holding. And we want to get your ideas for ways to engage the students and engage SGA in this process. So I want to hand it over to Joan Schaffner, the campaign chairperson, and to let her kind of talk about some of the ideas we have and to get your input as well. So go ahead, Joan.
All right, thank you, Dr. Lackey. Just briefly, I want to kind of give you guys an overview of what our kickoff weekend is going to look like. It'll be September 25th and 26th is planned to be the first home game, okay? And obviously, with everything going on with the virus, I mean, this is all fluid. This could very well change. But what we have planned right now is for that Friday night, there would be a concert, an opening act, a main concert, likely to be in the Ferris Center. Then on Saturday, we would have, this would be the first time we would bring our campaign committee, the donors and prospects who are part of that, they would come together. They would be meeting. We would have a kickoff announcement at the fountain. So over in Harding Centennial Plaza is where we envision actually doing the kickoff announcement. And then, of course, there'll be tailgating and the home football games, things happening throughout the football game as well. So that's just kind of a brief overview of what we're looking at, all of everything. We're wanting to make it fun. It's very celebratory. When you kick off a campaign and you go into what's called the public phase of the campaign, generally speaking, there's a good part of the money already raised. So it's a time when we start talking to all of our alumni, not just certain individuals and foundations, Dr. Lackey had said, but really engaging everybody in that process and how they can come together and they can support UCA. So obviously, we really want to have students involved, and we were just looking to you guys for ideas on the best way to engage students and how SGA might want to be involved. I know when we do our Day of Giving campaign, you guys are typically the first to step up. You're matching donations that are made by students. We envision, a lot of the same things, happening there. I know when Rose and myself and Russ Hancock, who's also working on our campaign communications, had met, we talked a little bit about, especially since it's y'all's anniversary year, you might want to have some kind of special project that could be part of the campaign. So that's just a real broad overview with everything. So just kind of wanted to give you guys, again, just to get y'all's suggestions back. What do you like? What do you think? What do you think we should maybe do a little bit different? But what's the best way to engage students?
Okay, does anyone have any comments or questions? If you have comments, you can just, questions, you can just leave it in the chat. Or even just speak up at this point in the meeting if you want.
Yeah, and I wish we could be doing this to you in person, but that day will come back around for all of us.
I do have one question that's not about this topic. I know there was an issue with the Cash App for Day of Giving. Do you have any ideas of what would have happened with that? Some students, their money was returned to them. Do you know anything about
Yes.
that? Or
I do know that has been fixed. Mary, do you want to elaborate any on that? Dr.
I
Lackey?
think you have probably more details than I do on that.
Yeah, it is. I know that with the foundation, there were some issues actually logging onto the account, and we were trying several times daily to get to reach out to Cash App. And by the time they finally got back to us, that waiting period for those cash donations had already passed, and that's why it was automatically returned. They got it fixed. Cash App finally got it fixed about maybe 4 or 5 hours after the money was returned, which was very frustrating for all of us. But I do know that is indeed fixed for the future. Because when it comes in, we have to physically go in there and accept it. And our foundation team was having a problem with actually getting into the account, and they just couldn't get Cash App to return those.
are there any other questions?
I have a comment about, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that it sounds like it's a great event. I think, honestly, that just marketing it to students, just if students just knew about it, then I kind of feel like they would come on their own without needing a super huge incentive, because it sounds really cool.
Okay, thank you, Corinne.
I know in the past, there was a campaign done back several years ago, not as big as we're doing now, but one of the things that was done, it was around the centennial celebration of UCA. And they had
I think we may have lost her.
and give students a concept as you on the on
Your
the fly.
video is freezing.
Can you still hear me though? Can you hear me?
We can hear you barely, but you keep blocking up.
Okay, I don't know why, probably the internet connection here.
That's-
But just, as you think of, we might want to come back together at a later time, and as you've had time to think about it, and maybe even with a smaller group to brainstorm some other ideas. I think you're right. Students will come if it's fun and we, market it well. We'd love to have, think through it even more with you sometime soon, maybe with a smaller group to think about, specific ways that would make it fun and engaging for students, and ideas for how to market to them so they will want to come. So we appreciate that back, and look forward to hearing more from you.
I do have one thing that I know this year was pretty popular. Some players from the football team went around like handing out T-shirts, just telling everybody to come to the games. And it was pretty cool just getting to see them. Like they had like a speakerphone, and they were just trying to get people to like hype them up. So I thought that was pretty fun. Just seeing them on a golf cart, just going around campus. So that could be something.
That's a good idea. Thank you. I like that. And we do have planned several giveaways, like little mini footballs, maybe mini megaphones, T-shirts, things like that, that we think that'll have the campaign theme and logo and everything on it. We've also talked about, and during the Centennial campaign, and I know this was way before y'all's time, but students on the football field had spelled out, 100. They'd spelled out 100 on the football field. So we've talked about different things like that as well. Maybe a photo opportunity where students are spelling out the campaign theme on the field, or the dollar amount for the campaign goal, or how much we've raised, just different things like that. So any ideas that y'all have, I mean, we'll obviously go out and talk to, the Greeks and some of the other different student organizations, encouraging them to come. But again, just any ideas that y'all have, we would greatly appreciate.
Are there any more questions or ideas? Okay, well, if you guys have any ideas that you think of later on, was that an idea? Someone have something? No. If you guys have any ideas that you think of later on, you can always contact them with emails or call them. That'd be okay too. But yeah, thank you both for coming. Really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about what's coming next at UCA. Thank you.
Thank you so
We appreciate
much.
you. Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.
Stay safe.
Thanks. All right, so we'll now move into open forum. Are there any students here to speak during open forum? This is where,
I'm here to speak during
yeah.
open forum.
Okay. If there are no objections, I'll suspend the rules for 5 minutes to allow her to speak.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes.
Sweet. So thank you to all of you guys for the chance to speak today. I'm here and concerned about the recent election for Vice President of Finance. I believe that the current arrangement, ignoring the 380 votes from the student body, is distinctly unjust. I'm advocating for a runoff election to allow those 380 students to make their voices heard. So first, I want to acknowledge the difficulty of running SGA elections during Corona and the determination that was required to make that happen. As a member of the student body, I deeply appreciate your commitment to just and fair elections, no matter the conditions. And it's exactly those values, justice and fairness, no matter the conditions, that I want to appeal to now. Mistakes happen in crisis, and Corona is distinctly a crisis, but those mistakes cannot be allowed to stand once they're recognized. The 380 votes for more should not be taken lightly. In much the same way that conducting an election during a pandemic took great care and energy from you, following and participating in that election during a pandemic took great care and energy from the student body. The 380 students who voted for Devon Moore voted during a crisis, during move-outs, during shutdowns, while they and their families lost jobs, lost hours, moved into isolation, yet they took the time to follow and vote in SGA elections. I think it's abundantly clear that those 380 students care deeply about the work that you do. They don't deserve to just be vanished. Instead, they deserve a chance to make their voices heard again. The conditions have changed. Campus is totally shut down. Moore is no longer part of the race, but justice and fairness are still critical. You have a chance here to put into the books an inarguably fair election during a pandemic. That's a testament to your responsibility and attentiveness as a student government. and it's one that your Constitution demands. Dylan Garrison's appeal lays out the specifics for that quite clearly. Kale did not win the majority of the votes cast. Consequently, your Constitution calls for a runoff election. Those 380 voters deserve a runoff. You deserve a runoff to ensure that you have in office a representative genuinely chosen by the student body. Now is the worst possible time to half-ass things. During this pandemic, we all need to stay committed to the same values that govern our normal lives. Please give the student body and yourselves the justice and fairness that we deserve. Heaven knows we need it right now. Thank you.
Okay, are there any students here to speak during open forum? Any more students?
Yes, I would. I can go next.
If there are no objections, I'll suspend the rules for 5 minutes.
I
One second. Oh, wait. If there are no objections, I'll suspend the rules for 5 minutes to allow them to speak. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I too am speaking in regards to the appeal brought forth by Senator Garrison. Hannah covered a lot of the things, but my intention in doing this was to just bring a student perspective to the issue as someone who participates in SGA elections, avidly voting in them anytime they come around and doing research on the different candidates and the different issues that are brought forth. I just wanted to be able to just kind of say my piece on the issue. I read the appeal by Senator Garrison, and what struck me that made me want to speak out about his appeal was what seemed to me to be a theme of equitability and fairness, and also transparency in regards to the election. I am a strong advocate for issues pertaining to equitability, and I'm also a strong advocate for issues pertaining to fairness. And I think that in a situation like the one we're in, I do have to commend SGA for the work that they've done in the people that ran on the campaigns, and also those that administered the campaigns for students to be able to vote. I know that couldn't have been easy with all of the hectic upheaval that's happened in the past few weeks in our lives. And I do think that Senator Garrison does raise good points about the constitution of SGA, which calls for a runoff in situations where no person reaches a majority. I do think that the students that voted for Devon do deserve a chance to have their voices heard. It's, to me, seems to be a difference between you voting for someone and them losing, and you voting for someone and then their votes kind of acting as if they don't matter, but still using the results as if they did. I think that those students deserve to have their voices heard. And I also think that students who voted previously, who might not have voted for Devon, still deserve a chance to pick between the two candidates that are left in a runoff election. I think that when it comes to issues of representation, also it's very important, especially with exec positions, which do represent the entire student body and are voted on by the entire student body, to have each person that is willing and has the accessibility to do so to be able to vote on those positions. And so that's why I think that SGA should reconsider the appeal brought forth by Senator Garrison in regards to the results of the VPF election.
Okay, are there any other students here to speak during open forum?
Hi.
Okay, if there's no objections, I'll suspend the rules for 5 minutes to allow them to speak. Okay, go ahead, you have 5 minutes.
Alrighty. Hey everyone, I'm Marlon Boston. I'm also here to speak on the appeal brought by Senator Garrison about the VPF elections. First off, I don't know if this I know it's like illegal or like unconstitutional to say, but I personally did vote for Devon Moore for this position. I grew up with him. I saw him in a lot of leadership roles, especially in school and within our church organizations. And I feel like he was a really good candidate. Unfortunately, he got disqualified and everything like that. But when he gave us the news, we were kind of like stuck in the air. We didn't know what was going on and everything like that. So I think to this day we still are. And so, as a student that did vote for Devon, it's a large number, 380 students, that can really change the fate of an election. Even one can. So, I don't know how difficult it is, but, on behalf of supporters of Devon like myself, I think we would like to see a re-election between Vice President of Finance Kale and Senator Garrison. At least try to see if we can get a simple majority, and be able to include everyone. Because I feel it's personally for me that when you miss out on one person, it's really gets unfair for everyone else, because if one person get the chance to, revote and, get their opinions out, I don't think it's really fair for a lot of for everyone. And I'm always trying to, be able to reach everyone if we can. And so 380 people is a lot of people. So hopefully y'all reconsider of accepting his appeal. I don't know what the term is, but I think it's important to just get those 380 people back assimilated, and trying to see who can who is truly who the people chose. And so I think a new election will do that with the two individuals that are still in the race. So yeah.
Okay, are there any other students here to speak during open forum?
Yes, I also.
Okay, so no objection. I'll send the rules for 5 minutes to allow her to speak.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Wait, am I the one who's talking now?
Oh, whoever wanted to.
Okay. So I also wanted to speak on behalf of the appeal brought forth by Dylan Garrison. And I just want to say, when I first found out about the problem, I was really surprised that that was a decision that SGA had come to. To me, it seemed like there was an issue that was brought forward, and it almost seemed like it was swept under the rug, because the students who voted in this election, they weren't notified that this was an issue. They weren't notified that their votes weren't going to count for anything. And I think that a lot of students who did vote for the candidate who was suspended are going to feel like their votes won't matter. And I think that's going to affect elections going forward. And I think especially now, it's important to protect the integrity of our student election, because these are the people who are going to be representing us, for the next year or so. And I think if students feel like their votes aren't going to count for anything, then we're going to see the numbers of students who are voting go down. And I think when you have that happen, you don't have a clear representation of the voice of campus, and the interests of the student body are going to be ignored when that happens. And so I think that the best thing that SGA can do is to listen to this appeals process, and let the vote go into a runoff election, because that's going to show the student body that they can trust their SGA, and that they're going to listen to the concerns of the student body, and really take all of the voices into account. And I feel like doing so will really protect the integrity of what you guys stand for. And I understand all of the hard work you guys have put into this election, and I don't want that to be compromised by the fact that one rule wasn't followed and there weren't any amends made in that. I think appeal will give students a chance to make their voices heard, and it will allow the 380 students whose vote didn't count to count for something. And I think that's really important, to allow the voices of the students to be heard, because it's their opinions who should be running a campus. SGA is meant to represent the interests of the student body. And I think that someone who wasn't elected by a majority might not be the best person to represent the student body. And regardless of who wins the runoff, one needs to make sure that the students still have the opportunity to vote. And in my opinion, everyone in SGA is elected with the responsibility to follow the guidelines that are outlined in your constitution, and to represent the best interests of the entire student body. And if the people who hold positions of power in SGA aren't elected by the majority of students, then they can't truly represent the best interests of the student body. Thank you, guys.
Okay, are there any other students here to speak during open forum? Okay, if there are no objections, I'll send the rules.
Hello, yes, I would like to speak.
Go ahead.
All right, so I am also here to talk about the appeal. I believe that voters should be allowed the chance to reassign their vote through a re-election, because out of 10,870 students, 1,366 students actually took the time and effort to think about what candidate for VP of Finance they wanted to vote for, and voted for them. And this also means that the 380 students that voted for Devon, the students that actually cared about this election and wanted to vote, are having their votes nullified. That was about 27.8% of the vote, which is a quarter of the vote, a little over a quarter. And I think we need to think about next year's election. Like, if there's only maybe not even a quarter of the student body that wants to vote in SGA elections, think about next year's voter turnout if people feel as if their votes won't count for anything. So it really just boils down to, is this fair for the voters? And according to the SGA page on uca.edu, I quote, that SGA aspires to be a united and engaged organization that acts and advocates on behalf of UCA. You have a voice, the opportunity to influence change and make your voice heard. So I just don't see how throwing votes away is advocating on behalf of UCA and making our voices heard. In fact, it seems to be the complete opposite. So this just blatantly goes against what SGA has claimed to advocate. And, you guys are supposed to represent the student body's voices, and I know not all of the body voted, but those who are actually engaged and interested and passionate about this election, those who put effort and care into what they're voting for, are not being met with the same dedication and loyalty that they put forth into this election. And, I know many people on SGA, and if I haven't met you, I've likely heard of you. And from what I've always seen and heard, like, you guys are responsible, you have that passion, and I always hear good things. And I know you guys wouldn't want like voters, or you wouldn't want students to feel this way, to feel like their votes wouldn't count. And, I know that's not what you intended, but that's the way that students feel about this. And it's not, we didn't do anything wrong, it's that something was done wrong. And we need to fix it.
Okay, are there any other students here to speak during open forum?
Can I speak, Rose?
Yeah, if there are no objections, I'll suspend the rules for 5 minutes to allow her to speak. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Alex. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a grad student in the PT doctorate program on campus. So I voted on every election that I've had the opportunity for the past 5 years now. I've educated myself. I've read the appeal. I've heard both sides of the argument. I know quite a few of you on SGA, and I'm just kind of confused as to why this is going on. I hear the majority word being thrown in a lot, and I guess the thing that confuses me the most is the majority of UCA students did not vote. So I don't know if you can say that means they don't care or they're just trusting the election to run its course in the way it does. But I was confused when the elections were brought out and like everybody was announced but VPF, and VPF was the only ones I cared about. Because as a grad student, we go to conferences all the time, and I was the president of a student organization on campus for 3 years, and staff hearings were awful. And so I like to know who was running it and who put the most effort in and who had the most experience. And I voted for the incumbent because that was kind of a no-brainer for me. And then I've been continuing to go to meetings because, of course, the pass-fail thing is, still in everybody's minds, especially grad students. So I've been tuning in here, and so I've watched what occur, and I've seen unprofessional things occur, and I've seen y'all talk, and I've seen all sides of the argument, and I just kind of feel like you're kind of negating the voice if most people voted for Jen, and we have other things that are of concern and are important, especially during this time of pandemic. If anything, this should show you that the incumbent should stay in, because she has the most experience. She's done a very good job, and then she's going to continue to do so, depending on how we come back in the fall, because her job will probably be the most stressful, and it's going to be extremely hard for a transitionary period, depending on the advisor and everything. So I just kind of feel like that needed to be said, because I understand wanting to hear the other people's side and wanting those votes to count, but those were minuscule compared to the amount of people that did not show out. And it's going to be even smaller with this happening during the pandemic. I would even see half of the people that did vote again for one race. So I guess I'm just concerned that it would definitely not be the people's voice or anything. So that's just me.
Okay. Are there any other students here to speak during open forum? Okay. Well, then we will move into exec reports. So the first point I have is etiquette and PR. So as SGA members, we are so lucky to have access to President Davis and administration. But I want to remind everyone of like the level of respect that we have to show them. For advocates for students, that's what we're here for. But if we're not respecting the individuals that are in the administration, then they won't listen to what we're saying. They'll listen to like how we're saying it. So just keep that in mind. And we have a long legacy of leadership. The administration respects us, and we have to keep that. We have to stay like in their good regards if we want to keep on being able to advocate for students. I'm also loving the passion that that SGA has right now. Like, please keep advocating for students. Like, I'm loving that. I'm loving seeing that. But also want to remind you that if you're going to make like a statement or something that's about what's happening right now, you can do that. You have your freedom of speech to do that, but just make sure you're not putting SGA's name on that, because it looks like it's a statement from us, and only the exec board can put out statements like that are on like official SGA statements. I also want to add that at fall retreat, we told everyone that if there's like a decision that SGA makes, then that's the cohesive decision of the body. We should not be telling people that we don't agree with the decision of SGA, because that's like not keeping us a cohesive body, and we're not looking or being cohesive if we do this and go against the decisions that are made by the body. Senior cords, if anyone has like wants to get their senior cords from SGA, we would be able to mail them to you if you want. So you can also pick them up. Just let us know what you want to do. And then lastly, I have our last Senate meeting is next Monday. We're doing the transitions of the executive board at that meeting. Yeah, are there any questions? Okay, Vice President Teeter.
All right, so I don't have too much going on right now. I've just been working on my transition document and the location for the fall retreat in September that Senator Hernandez will be planning. Typically the EVP before whoever comes next always plans the location and the date for that. So for instance, President McGarity planned the location of my retreat, and then Vice President Riggins planned it for then Vice President Barnes. And so I'm looking in right now, it's looking like it's gonna be back at Ship of the Ozarks. And it's going to be either the weekend of the September 11th or September the 18th. So just so y'all know what's going on.
Okay, are there any questions for Vice President Teeter? Okay, Vice President Lockings.
Okay, so President McGarity and I figured out what we're doing for our Senators of the Month. So if you haven't responded to President McGarity's text messages or mine earlier, please do that. And then SGA outreach. So the executive board is thinking of great decisions and finding out ways that we can make sure students know their resources on campus, and just sort of being aware of the chain of command and knowing that they can also reach out to administration and professors and stuff whenever they need help, or just certain offices, whether it's financial aid or admissions. So we'll be working on that and posting that on our social media platforms so that students are still aware of the continuous resources that UCA is providing.
Okay, are there any questions for Vice President Lockings? Vice President Kale?
All right, I don't have much, just that if you have any receipts and you haven't been reimbursed for something that your committee has done or for any events, to be sure to contact me so we can get that figured out.
Okay, are there any questions for Vice President Kale? Okay, we'll move into standing committee reports. Academic Affairs, Senator Cheek. Okay, is anyone here to speak on behalf of
report this week.
Oh, okay, okay. Election rules, Senator Villano. Do you have anything?
No, not really. I'm good.
Okay. Internal Affairs, Senator Spears.
All right, guys. So we have two bills from straight from the Internal Affairs Committee. It really just helps with clarification, very small in scope, very simple. So we'll announce those as a previous notice of new business. And EVP Teeter will also be presenting a bill which basically means SB 008 and 10, or SB 009 and 10 are from us. And then his bill will be SB 0011. So we'll see that in new business.
Are there any questions for Senator Spears? Housing and Food Services, Senator Garrison.
Hey everybody, so I'm working right now on writing up and like a resolution of appreciation for all of our food service workers. Hopefully I'll have that done pretty soon and I can present it at the next and last meeting, and we can end on a great note and distribute that. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Senator Garrison? Okay, Senator Hall.
Diversity has no report this week. Thank you, guys.
Okay. SFAC, Senator Patel.
All right, so we met at this past week. That was the last hearings. Then it was on Thursday, and that was the last one. Now we met yesterday too at 4:30 p.m. to write a report. We'll have the report done by next Monday, so be ready for that. That's it.
Okay. Are there any questions for Senator Patel? Okay, Bear Advocacy Group, Senator Sander.
Okay, the training for the census that we said was last week, it's actually this week, and it is at 1 on Thursday, I believe. Thursday, yeah. So Thursday at 1. So if you want to participate in that, Leslie Graybill is giving attendance points or attendance on Cub Connect. So yeah. If you have any questions about it, contact Javier. He knows.
Senator Hernandez. Okay, are there any questions for Senator?
Sorry.
Okay,
I think it's
yeah.
tomorrow.
Oh, wait, 1 second. You have to ask if you want to speak.
Oh, right.
Senator Sander, do you have anything else?
No, so evidently it's tomorrow.
Okay.
It's Tuesday. That's right.
Senator Hernandez, do you have a question?
No, I was just gonna clarify. Just
Okay.
say that.
No, I was,
yeah.
okay, gotcha. I was just correcting the senator part. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. We'll now move into ad hoc committee reports. Centennial, Senator Wesley.
I have a little fun fact. In 1977 and 78, which was the year before Kelly Erskine was president, but the president during that year was Michael Jones, they held dances after the football games, and there were ice cream machines in residence halls. So the 77, 78 sound like a good year. That's all.
Are there any questions for Senator Wesley? Senator Rouse.
No real updates this week. Senator Randall is continuing to work on what she talked about last week.
Okay. Senator DePersia, Student Resources.
The only update we have is that they should be doing video counseling starting on Wednesday. So that's it.
Are there any questions for Senator DePersia? Okay, Senator Hernandez.
No updates for sustainability.
Okay. Let's see. Are there any university committee reports? No? Okay. Is there any unfinished business? No. Okay. Is there any new business? Okay, Senator Spears.
Try to get the screen share for these two previous notices real fast. Share. Okay. So if you will look, in accordance with SGA bylaws, Constitution bylaws, and special rules of order, notice is hereby given for Senate Bill 009, Executive Board obligations in the summer. And SB 010, clarification process on election appeals. These will be distributed in the minutes by Vice President Operations Locking. So if you have any questions or concerns, of course, throughout this week, don't hesitate to ask.
Okay. Senator Garrison.
I move that the UCA SGA renew the motion to approve the decision and report of the Election Rules Committee calling for a new election between Jen Kale and Dylan Garrison.
Okay. I'm ruling this dilatory because we've already discussed this last week, and I know I told you ahead of time just so you wouldn't be blindsided by this, but it's to the point where I think this is obstructing our business. So that's why I rule it dilatory. If you guys don't agree with me, you're allowed to make a motion against it, but I do think it's gotten to the point where it's obstructing our business. Our focus should be on students and helping students right now. Even if the pandemic wasn't happening, I'd still rule this way because right now it's taking away time from us helping students because we're focusing on this. So.
I move to appeal the decision of the chair.
Second.
Okay. Discussion on the motion, Senator Hall.
Yes, I would like to just appeal this decision because myself personally have been in contact with President McGarity this past week where we have worked, President McGarity, myself, and then Senator Garrison, we've been working very hard on this motion, and President McGarity had given Senator Garrison the okay to keep going with this motion, and I yield the rest of my time to Senator Garrison.
Yeah, so I was under the impression that this would come to the floor unobstructed until an hour ago. I I feel like there had been ample opportunity all this week for President McGarity to tell me that she planned to block this. And now that I have done all of the research and have written up pages upon pages of things to talk about, and you've heard from the students, they want this back on the floor. So I urge you to vote yes on this.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this motion? Yeah, Senator Spears.
I vote personally in favor of President McGarity's dilatory motion, primarily because although we have heard a lot of concerns, I have heard concerns from my constituency that a runoff election or any more dwelling on past elections is inhibiting SGA's ability to do its duty and do certain things in a pandemic that need to be done. That being said, I think that throughout this process, and a further runoff election would not only hinder students who are disproportionately hindered throughout this process, because we all know there are disparities in Arkansas for which that are very, very obvious, whether it be internet access or socioeconomic factors, and letting those students' voices not necessarily be trampled, but to have a lopsided path to voting, which are less likely to be engaged in college events if they're not on campus and not given that direct opportunity. This is why I think that we need to stick to the business of UCAA. We should continue with, and I vote in favor of I am in favor of the dilatory motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, any other comments?
I believe there's some in the chat.
Oh, wait, okay, yeah, Senator Crawford. Oh, yeah, I didn't see it. Yeah. Senator Crawford, go ahead, then I'll get VP Lockings after.
Okay. I'm rising in support of President McGary's decision. I just think it's an absolute waste of time for us to keep discussing this topic. There are several other things that the SGA needs to worry about in this time, especially with this pandemic. And especially with the voter turnout we had in the elections, this runoff election would have almost no turnout compared to it, just by seeing that no one's on campus, so campaigns wouldn't really work or anything like that. And personally, I believe that at this point, we just need to move from everything else, because students have come to me hearing about this and they're so tired of it. So, yeah.
Okay. VP Lockings.
Okay, I just want to point out just some, I don't know if I'll be able to put this all in 2 minutes, but we'll try. So I'm rising in support of this dilatory motion because we pose not because you weren't given notice ahead of time, because as president, right, and chairperson to rule something dilatory, and she's not obligated to tell you ahead of time whether that's happening. Additionally, every SGA is not a partisan body. Every vote, regardless of your candidate being elected, as an executive officer, you represent those people who do not vote for you. So us saying that those 380 votes aren't represented is disrespecting SGA as an organization and the exec, because exec is supposed to be representative of all students no matter whether they voted for you or not. Those 380 votes, and then the students that will likely come out to vote in this next election will be incredibly low, and we want that to overrule the 986 votes that were cast in favor of Vice President Kell or Senator Garrison. So that's where I have my first problem. And then for guidelines of the Constitution, the appeal in the first place was unconstitutional because it was not within the 72-hour period. And so if you are going to be a senator and an executive
Point of order. You can't speak on that part right there. This is just about the appeal of decision of the chair.
Yeah, we can, if it gets to the point where we're speaking on the motion, then you can continue with that, VP Lockings.
Okay, I'll get back to that.
Do you have anything else? You still have a minute. Do you have more?
In echoing Senator Crawford's point, students do not want another election, and for us to be so focused on the titles in this organization that we cannot advocate for the students in this time of pandemic, I think takes away from the integrity and service of SGA. We have greater things to worry about, and this is obstructing business. I think that there should be no precedent set where an election appeal should last for 2 to 3 weeks because of someone being unhappy about the results.
I want to clarify what we're voting on, just so everyone's on the same page. This is a discussion over if there should be, like, if my dilatory decision is valid. So we're going to be voting on this. If majority agrees that it's not valid or doesn't want it, then that would mean there would be discussion for for Senator's Garrison's appeal. We get to discuss it. Okay, Senator Garrison, would you like to speak on the motion?
Yeah, so I think it's absolutely disrespectful for us to completely ignore the students that came here to speak today about how outraged they were that the 380 votes are being denied and treated as if they didn't even happen at all. I'm aware that that it would be difficult to conduct an election during this time of quarantine, during this crisis, but that did not stop us in the first place from doing it. As you will remember, the campus had stopped classes and everything on the last day of our election, and that did not stop us from holding the election in the first place. So, listen, I think you've heard it from the students. I can present much more when we get into formal discussion on this, but it needs to come to formal discussion first. So I rise, I guess, against, in opposition to President McGarity's motion to rule, or decision to rule this dilatory.
Okay. And again, we're voting on the appeal, not on, like, my decision to rule it dilatory. Senator Hall. Point of information, what?
Yeah,
Senator Villano?
does this need a 2/3 majority, or does this need just a simple majority?
Simple majority. A simple majority, if 21 people, because we have 41 voting members, are in favor of having, I guess 21 people would be needed to vote against my decision for it to go into voting on Senator Garrison's motion. Okay, Senator Hall.
Point of clarification.
Yes, Vice President Lockings.
They're voting on the appeal. So if you vote yes, then you're voting to overrule. And if you vote no, you're voting to not overrule. Because we're voting on the appeal to overrule your decision.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I guess 21 yes votes would mean we'd go into the discussion for Senator Garrison's yes. So if you vote yes, you're wanting to not, like, you're wanting to overrule my appeal or dilatory decision. Voting no, you are agreeing that it should be dilatory. So, okay, Senator Hall.
Oh yes, okay, thank you. I rose to appeal the decision of the chair, not out of disrespect of the chair, but just because I remember that at retreat we were told that we are here to represent our students' voices, and I do think that these students' voices should be addressed with Senator Garrison's appeal, because we did have people to take time out of their day to come and speak during open forum, and so I feel like we should be able to address their concerns during our meeting. And so yes, I just want everybody to remember that we're not here to represent our own opinions on matters. We're here to represent the opinions of our students that voted us into office.
Senator Hernandez.
Yeah, I also rise in support of the appeal. I just think that there was a very large, complete disregard of, like, students having like issues during the like pandemic at the beginning of the original election. I brought up that we should move to only online voting because we wouldn't want to close school guidelines saying that we should go home, and that that it's not safe to meet in person. But there was a very despair, and how come we're seeing it now? I just would like to point that it turned brought up, and I think they should be brought. That if they weren't going to be listened to then. I'm not saying that it's helpful for students not to be on campus, but we should be able to still hold another runoff. I believe that there would have been a runoff either way, even if this was happening. If Devon Moore was in this, there would be a runoff. So I think that we should go forward with this. And again, I don't mean to disrespect the chair at all, I promise. I just don't think that it would be more equitable. Look, I'm not trying to say that one person would be better than the other. To me, I believe that both people will do great jobs in this position. I just think that it's more fair. You know, there's this concept of, like, equity that I think that we need to really just address. And I think that's, at the end of the day, what we're addressing with discussing this motion, is the concept of equity for our students.
Okay. Vice President Lockings, it's your second time to speak on the motion.
I just want to say that by no means is my rise in opposition to the appeal me disregarding the voice of the students that came to open forum today. But I would also like to say that several senators have said that their constituents and their people have also risen against having another election. So thank you for the students who came to open forum, but I'm also speaking for other students who can't be here today and who do not want another election. I would also like to say that conditions are different right now regarding coronavirus and everything. That was very fresh. That was originally planned for the election, but things have changed. And then going towards why this is obstructing business, the new exec board and our new class presidents and vice presidents are to be sworn in next Monday, and we want to have another election, a 2-day transition period in a time where everything is completely off the rails. Coronavirus is not in any of the transition documents. This is a new territory. So throwing anybody into a new executive spot for 2-day transition is not being good advocates of the students and not being good leaders in our right in representing them. We should want to represent them in the best way. And there's nothing in our Constitution that says being an exec member or being a class president is the only way you can represent students. We have several positions in the fall, and I don't think that this is any of us having a personal agenda. If anything, it feels like there's a personal agenda to get a new election to happen so that there could possibly be a new vice president of finance. This is not a personal motivation thing. And I wish we would stop twisting this narrative to make it seem like those in opposition of the election are just corrupt and evil for some reason.
Okay, Senator Spears.
So again, I do applaud the students coming to open forum today. I do stand in support of President McGarrity's dilatory motion, but I stand for it because of the facts. And here are the facts as I see them, at least. Throughout the Constitution, we have various processes that are to be followed, and those processes, I argue at least, were followed throughout this process to ensure that there was a candidate that received a majority. Devon Moore was removed from the election prior to the end of said election. That election ended with 2 candidates, one candidate receiving a majority. Now we can argue that, and some may say rightfully so, that that candidate did not receive the majority of the counts eligible in their opinion, but in the eligible votes, that Vice President of Finance Kale won the election. And I stand with the Constitution in supporting that the right processes were followed and that nothing unconstitutional occurred throughout this process. There was no circumvention of process. Believe me, all of us want to make sure we're by the book in this. These are important positions. They're critical to the high functioning of UCA. And we've heard from multiple students that these positions can make or break a process like SAFA or other things. And by all means, I'm impartial to whoever wins this election, but I do believe that the proper processes were done correctly, were done in accordance with the Constitution at the time that they were followed, and that represent, to the best of our ability in this basically unconfronted circumstance, the will of the students as the Constitution says. That's why I was in support of the dilatory motion.
Okay, Senator Kramer.
I have a point of information first.
Yeah.
So if students vote for a candidate and then that candidate is removed from the ballot, are they allowed to go back into the ballot and re-vote?
So at that point, no. With Cub Connect, the way it operates, once you vote, that's your vote. So if it's possible, that would be good for the future to look at that. But currently, as it stands, it's not possible. Okay, Senator Little.
Well, I still have a statement to make. That was just.
Oh, okay. Senator Kramer.
So the first thing I want to talk about is going off of what Senator Spears talked about of how it wasn't constitutional. And I disagree with that. If you read Senator Garrison's appeal, it gives the numbers of the elections and lays out how it would be unconstitutional. Jen received 562 votes and Dylan received 424. That's 56% to 43%. And that was a total of 986 votes.
With every other executive office position, there was a total of 1,366 votes. And if you did the math, that would leave the 380 for Devon, leaving no one with the majority of 51%. And the executive positions are specified to have a majority instead of a plurality or a 1/3 vote. Because those 380 votes, they were cast, but they weren't counted in the final total. So yes, those votes were basically, they vanished from the total votes at the end. So part of the reason why this appeal was brought up was because of the unconstitutional ruling of the Senate last week when they voted no. I understand that there are some more pertinent issues at the moment with COVID, believe me. But I just want to point out that every senator that voted no for the election appeal last week chose to maintain an election result that was done unconstitutionally. And because of the unique situation we have now, if we want to leave that ruling standing and sacrifice some constitutional integrity at this moment, I understand that, but every senator needs to be willing to take that into account and take responsibility for making that sacrifice.
Point of information.
Yes, Senator Spears.
In I believe Article 4, Section 3 in the old Constitution, which I believe would take precedence under these circumstances. Letter E says, in all races in which there are only 2 candidates for the election, meaning after the election there are only 2 candidates, the general election shall be the final election except in the event of a tie. Therefore, the correct constitutional, in my opinion, at least in the interpretation of what it says, the Constitution justifies that there not be a runoff.
That's not a point of information.
Okay. Senator Hall, you have to, if you want to speak, you have to do like a point of information, point of order, that kind of thing.
I said point of order.
Okay, you did? Okay. Yeah, so wait, Senator Spears, were you asking a question?
I was providing constitutional, my point of order was in reference to a section in the Constitution in which it explicitly lies out. I apologize for inserting my own opinions.
No, you can do a point of clarification for that kind of thing, but point of information, you have to ask a question.
Yes.
Senator Hall.
Point of clarification.
Senator Kramer, what was that?
Point of clarification in response to what Senator Spears just read. If you look in that same section where actually it'd be letter G in the old Constitution, it says if one candidate does not receive a majority of votes cast in the election for executive officers, the 2 candidates receiving the highest number of votes will have a runoff election. So if you're looking at that wording there, the decision to have a runoff election is off of the total votes cast. And there were in fact votes cast for Devon Moore that were not counted in the letter that gave Senator Kale the office of Vice President of Finance. So that is where some of the issue is, and that it must have the total number of votes cast.
Okay, Senator Little.
I would further like to raise a point of clarification on that.
Okay, Senator Garrison.
So you also read that out of the Constitution that said it has to be in 2-person races. And this was, by definition, you can read it in my appeal, it was not a 2-person election. It was a 3-person election until the last day.
Or is this clarifying?
This is clarifying. So until the last day, it was not a 2-person race. So unless the results for the last day can be obtained, then we cannot operate under that criteria because they don't fit this election.
Okay, for point of clarifications, you can say like what it says, but make sure you guys aren't saying your opinions at all. You can say what the Constitution says, that kind of thing, but it's not a time for you guys to state your opinion. That's for the discussion. Okay, Senator Little.
Okay.
Senator Hall.
I just have a question, President McGarity, that so I can be more informed on what's going on. Could you explain to me what business we are being kept from?
Yeah.
By like listening to Senator Gary.
Yeah, so this was discussed last week, and the fact that it went through the election appeal, like it went through the appeal process and everything, it's taking away from whatever Senate decides to speak now. We spent about an hour on this, and there could be other motions, there could be other new business. It's basically obstructing whatever else we could be doing as a Senate, brainstorming ideas to help students I mean, there's a whole plethora of things that it could be. Okay. Senator Little.
I have a further point of information.
Okay. Senator Hall.
Do we not have time set on Mondays where we can speak about things? I know you guys say 5 to 8, but is 8 the actual cap?
No, there's no cap. We can go till 8:30, 9 if you guys want. I mean,
so we don't have a set amount of time for a meeting?
No, they typically last about an hour to 2, but I've been in meetings that have lasted till like 8:45. Okay, Senator Little.
Point of order.
Yes.
I said I would like to speak before Senator Little did.
I thought I already had you speaking.
I spoke once. I have not spoken the second time.
Okay, yeah, then I do have it in order, but I'm not strictly going off of this. I called him just now, so I'll call on you next.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So Senator Little, you're good to go, and then I'll call in Senator Garrison.
I would just like to point out that a candidate being removed from an election does not fault the election itself. When you as a candidate go into the rules committee, you are told very clearly that if you receive 2 to 3 campaign violations, you can be removed from the ballot. That is the responsibility of the candidate. Now, is it awful that those students voted for that candidate, but the candidate was removed? Yes, but that candidate knew the risk and knew what would happen if 3 campaign violations were given to them. So that does not put the entire election at fault because a candidate received campaign violations and we followed the Constitution and removed that candidate from the ballot like they are told they will in the rules meeting. And then as far as constitutional, Senate discussed this and decided this last week. So if the body of Senate made a decision, then this decision was made. And then also going into this, I get that there may have been mistakes made and we could create clearer processes, but it would be better if we make this a proactive learning curve and productive and learning how to fix this so it doesn't happen again, rather than making a divisive Senate that is not becoming productive from this. We can learn from this, or are we just going to choose to fight over this consistently?
Okay, Senator Little, and I'd actually called on Senator Little. I think I might have misheard me, Vice President Walking. So we pick people to speak that haven't spoken yet. So that's why Senator Little is next. And I'll call on you next year, Senator Garrison. Senator Little.
Oh, that was it. I just wanted to yield my time.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, cool. But Senator Garrison.
All right, so I just want to come off of that really briefly. So what I got from that is because Devon Moore was removed from the race, just because he was removed from the race does not mean the students that voted for him should pay for his mistakes. Also, this shouldn't really have played out the way it did in the first place if our Constitution was followed in the way it should have been. Also, another point that Vice President Lockings brought up earlier is this is not a partisan thing, and I would agree it should not be a partisan thing. But following the appeal hearing last week, I reached out to nearly every single one of you in this meeting to get the reasoning behind your votes, because Vice President Lockings was the only person and speak in opposition. So everyone else's motivations were essentially secret. At retreat, I remember being told explicitly to never cast a no vote without first standing up to give some sort of reasoning behind this. Yet 9 no votes were cast last week with absolutely no explanation whatsoever. But upon reaching out, I did hear back from several of you, and just so you know, one of the reasons that I got for the vote of a no vote was I like Jen. So you can say it's not partisan, and I don't think it should be, but when that is the rationale offered by some senators, I don't think that you can deny the partisanship that is being brought into this process by senators like that. Sorry.
I've let a lot of you speak about like other things, but what we're voting on right now is if we should rule this dilatory. Like if we're voting on the appeal of what, like of me ruling this dilatory. So it's not on like if there should be an election. We're not voting on who there should be, like who should be in office. We're voting on if this appeal is like if we should overturn it or not. The appeal of my ruling of this thing to be dilatory. Okay. Does anyone have any statements or comments on that? That's what we're discussing.
Yeah, point of clarification.
Yes.
So,
Senator Lou?
so we're going to be voting on whether we should allow Senator Garrison to speak, right?
No, so essentially kind of. So the voting is on, I ruled his appeal dilatory, which I ruled it that way because dilatory is like it's obstructing business, that kind of thing. I ruled it that it's obstructing business. So if you vote, so then Senator Hall appealed my statement or my ruling to, she didn't think it was dilatory. So we're voting on Senator Hall's motion. So if you vote yes on Senator Hall's motion, you're voting yes to her appeal on, which is the appeal was on my dilatory decision. And if you're voting yes, then you want to overturn my decision. And that means you want to discuss the Senator Garrison's motion that I had ruled dilatory. Does that make sense? And then if you vote no, then that means you agree with my decision to rule Senator Garrison's motion dilatory. And that would mean there'd be no more like discussion on it. We wouldn't be able to bring it up again if you vote
Got
no.
it. All right. Thank you.
Information.
Yeah, Senator Hall.
President McGarity, could you explain the motion to renew? Could you explain what that is?
Yeah. So a motion to renew, I have my book if you guys want like exact language for Poly Pro, but basically it's something that if the Senate doesn't like the decision, they can bring it up again. And then I have the power as chair to rule it dilatory.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that that was a real motion. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Senator Perry.
Yes, I would just like to yield my time to Senator Hall.
Okay. Senator Hall.
Okay, I'm back again, rising in support to appeal the decision of the chair. For one, I just want to address this. I know Senator had stated that they didn't want to uphold this because they didn't want for our students to have to deal with another election. But I do want to bring up that during our rules and election meeting, Vice President of Operations, he told us that it is the senator's job to encourage voter turnout. And so I feel like that, again, should be another thing that we should be worried about as senators is getting people to vote. And we should not be making that a reason why we don't want to hold another election. Also, what I want to speak on is the fact that there is a motion to renew. And that's why I asked President McGarry to explain it. So basically, why would we have this motion in our book that we can use if we don't want, like if you guys never want to use it? Basically, I feel like it is being used the right way, and we're using it because different students have raised concerns. So I feel like it is a good thing to do. I also am rising and in favor of this motion because a lot of people have said that we're taking away necessary time that could be used on different motions. But as President McGarity pointed out, that we do not have a time cap on any meetings. So essentially we can keep going in this meeting forever to discuss any motions that we have going on. And so I feel like this motion does not take up the time that could be used on different motions because we don't have a time cap. We can still keep on going with any new business, old business, anything that we have going on. We can still continue to do that in this meeting. This motion to appeal has nothing to do with taking up anybody's time. So that is why I am rising in support to appeal President McGarity's.
Okay, Senator Spears, do you have a point of information still? No? Okay. Vice President Teeter.
I moved the previous question.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see. Roll call vote. Actually, sorry, discussion on the motion, Senator Spears. Sorry, Vice President Teeter.
Point of information. Is there discussion on this
Yeah,
motion?
sorry. Yeah. Good. Yeah, well, it's Vice President Watkins. Roll call vote, please.
Point of
information. Can you
please clarify what people are voting on right now?
Yeah. Sorry, there's no discussion on this. For point of information, we're voting on if there should be voting direct, like where this would end all discussion and we go directly to voting on Senator Hall's appeal. So if you vote yes on this point of information, or this motion to go into the voting, you will be basically ending discussion. But if you vote no on this, then you want there to be more discussion on this motion. Roll call vote, Vice President Watkins.
Aldi,
Yes.
Andrews, Barber,
Yes.
Bassam,
Yes.
Beaver,
Yes.
Buchanan,
No.
Kale,
Yes.
Cheek,
Yes.
Chu,
Yes.
Kramer,
Yes.
Crawford,
Yes.
Dang,
Yes.
Diafodi, DePersia,
Yes.
Farnham,
Yes.
Fort,
Yes.
Garrison,
Yes.
Hall,
No.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Karumo,
Yes.
Langston,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Little.
Yes.
I vote yes. McClure, Murphy,
Yes.
Aluemisi,
Yes.
Patel,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Yes.
Portillo, Rouse,
Yes.
Randall,
Yes.
Sander,
Yes.
Sands,
Yes.
Spears,
Yes.
Spites,
Yes.
Teeter,
Yes.
Van Ash,
Yes.
Villano,
Yes.
Wesley,
Yes.
Woodruff,
Yes.
Okay, and then VP Walkings, it needs 2/3 to do motion to previous question, so it would need 28.
Okay, with 36 yeses, 2 nos, and 0 abstentions, the motion passes.
Okay, so that means that we are going straight into voting. No more discussion on the motion that Senator Hall made. This motion, just to reiterate, if you vote yes on this motion, her motion was an appeal to my decision to rule Senator Garrison's motion dilatory. So if you vote yes on Senator Hall's motion, then you are agreeing to overturn my decision to rule it dilatory. And that means you want to have more discussion on Senator Garrison's vote or motion. And then if you vote no on what we're about to vote on, then you agree with my dilatory ruling and you don't want to have any more discussion on Senator Garrison's appeal. Okay, roll call vote, Vice President Watkins.
Information.
Yes. Well, it actually, we've already gone into votes. I'm sorry. Actually, yeah.
I was just going to ask,
Yes.
what is the vote requirement for this pass?
Do what? Yeah, we're already into voting. I'm sorry. But Vice President Watkins, go ahead.
Aldi,
No.
Andrews, Barber,
No.
Bassam, okay. Beaver,
No.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Kale,
No.
Cheek,
No.
Chu,
No.
Kramer,
Yes.
Crawford,
No.
Dang,
No.
Diafodi, DePersia,
Yes.
Farnham,
Yes.
Fort,
No.
Garrison,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Yes.
Karumo,
Yes.
Langston,
No.
Lou,
Yes.
Little, Little.
No.
Oh, I vote no. McClure, Murphy,
Yes.
Oyuemisi, Patel,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Portillo,
Yes.
Rouse,
No.
Randall,
Yes.
Sander,
No.
Sands,
Yes.
Spears,
No.
Spites,
No.
Teeter,
No.
Van Ash,
Yes.
Villano,
Yeah.
Wesley,
Abstain.
Woodruff,
No.
18 yeses, 17 noes, and 1 abstention.
And it needed 2/3, so that would have been, oh, sorry, majority.
No,
simple
we need
majority.
majority.
21, yeah, so majority, so I admit. Okay. So the motion fails. Is there any
Point
more?
of information, was it a majority of the votes cast or a majority of Senate?
It's majority of Senate. Okay. Is there any more new business?
President McGarity.
Yeah, if you want to speak to me, you have to do like a point of information or point of clarification.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
Do you guys see the chat? 2 voters were in there. They said their mics were
Oh,
on.
did you get, okay, so 18, 19.
I got Bassam, and I can put Fawaz, so.
Okay, so with 19 yeses, how many, can you repeat the vote count?
With
Vice
19
President?
yeses, 17 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay, so that means the motion fails. Is there any more new business? Okay, any more new business? Vice President Teeter.
Yes. All right. So in accordance with the SGA Constitution, bylaws, and special rules of order, I present SB 00 or SB 011, allowing Greek letters. This will be put in the minutes. I'll give it to Vice President Hawkins.
Okay, wait, Vice President Hawkins, people have been asking what the vote count was again. Can you repeat it just so people know?
19 yeses, 17 noes, and 1 abstention.
And it needed a simple majority to pass. There's 41 members that are voting, or at least in Senate, and we're counting full Senate. So that would mean that it needed 21.
Point of information, where does it require us to take full Senate into account? It would have to say a majority vote, majority of membership vote in order.
All of the votes that we do are of Senate. That's how it's in our Constitution. It's always votes of Senate, majority of Senate.
Senator Garrison is correct.
Senator Garrison, can you yield to a question? Or can you, what are you going to say?
Okay, so in Robert's Rules of Order, I can point it out. Here we go. So in Robert's Rules of Order, it says that any time that you are voting on something, it is supposed to be, well, I have it for 2/3, but it's assumed for the majority too. A 2/3 votes mean 2/3 of the votes cast. This must not be confused with the vote of the members present or 2/3 of the members. Whenever there is a majority, whenever a motion calls for a simple majority, it is only those votes cast unless it is specified within Robert's rules on this motion or within our Constitution that it has to be a majority of the members.
Okay, I'm gonna have to yield to an advisor on this one because I don't know practice of SGA in the past. How have we? Do you know how we've done this? Any of the advisors?
I'm not an expert at this. Normally, this is Hank's expertise. So is Hank in the meeting?
Let me see. Yeah, yes, he is. Hank, do you know what we've
Yeah,
done in the past?
I'm looking it up to what you know, if we do majority of those present or majority of the roster.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on.
Vice President Lockings, can you tell me how many people are currently in Senate right now? Like how many votes were counted total?
Just give me a second. Okay, so in Senate right now, there's 37 people. That those 37 of votes cast.
37 votes were cast. Okay.
Yes.
Right now, I can't find any place where it says definitely define. I mean, a majority. When you're thinking of for quorum, you would definitely say it's a majority of the whole membership. I can't really find anything where it says for specific motions, I guess, unless it would be definitely say a majority of the voting, of those voting.
Can you, Vice President Watkins, can you read off the vote count again for me? Like
19 yes. 19 yeses, 17 noes, and one abstention.
And there are 37 voting members?
Yes.
Okay. So that would mean that we'd need to have a majority. That would be, 1 second.
18 and a half.
Yeah. So the plus one, I mean, would be like, I guess. Yeah. So anything more than 18.5. So Hank, you couldn't decide which one it was or couldn't find.
Hang on, still looking.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, even if it's not, you need 18.5 to get, that's a majority. And let's see, so that was, you received 19 yeses. So yeah, determined.
Okay, Robert's rules does say, and I'm gonna just quote it line, here's exactly what it says. 2 elements enter into the definition of such basis for decision. Talking about decisions on voting. 1, the proportion that must concur, which is a majority or 2/3. Okay. And 2, the set of members to which the proportion applies, which, when not stated, is always the number of members present and voting. But it can, if it's be specified, as the number of members present or the total membership or some other grouping. So that to me says when it's not stated, it's always the number of members present and voting.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I interpreted too. So it needed 18.5 for majority and it got 9. Did it get 18 or 19 yeses?
19.
Okay, well then yeah, I'd say it passes. Okay, Senator Garrison, discussion on the motion.
All right, so now that we're here, good God, it took us a long time to get here. So I'm a little bit frazzled, but I will be sending the appeal again in the chat for everyone to read over. When I reached out to everyone that last week regarding their votes, I received answers that can be generalized into 3 different categories. 1, I was unaware of what we were voting on or felt as though I did not have all the relevant facts to make a decision. So I'll be putting the appeal in the chat. 2, I did not believe the appeal was submitted within the proper time frame. Or 3, I like Jen. That was really a reason that I got. So shame on you for that person. But anyway.
We're not allowed to shame on other senators during this. We're
sorry.
Big SGA family. We can't be mean to anyone else.
Sorry. Well, okay, so I want to address the second point, which was I did not believe the appeal was submitted within the proper time frame. So with this, I first want to address the fact that it is unconstitutional to even cite this as a reason in the first place because it does not pertain whatsoever to the question at hand. The SGA is considering in this motion whether the appeal presented has merit. We are not deciding whether the appeal should be on the floor. That is a decision that was tasked to the Ways and Means Committee and has already been answered. Article 2, Section 1, subletter C, subnumber 3 of our Constitution holds the Ways and Means Committee shall be the ruling body on constitutionality, policy, elections, and ethics arising in SGA. If the Senate body as a whole has an issue with the decision of the Ways and Means Committee to accept this, and for that matter, all appeals submitted prior to Thursday, April 2nd at 7 p.m., then that decision can be brought to the floor and overturned by the Senate body. Voting no on this appeal does not say this appeal did not follow the timeline guidelines. Voting no on this appeal says 380 students' votes are going to be thrown away as if they were never cast. But I also want to address the complete absurdity of this argument in the first place. Written in the title of my appeal letter are the words Vice President of Finance 2020 Election Results Appeal. Results. How is it that I am expected to appeal the results of an election when the election did not have any results released? So the writers of our Constitution were surely smart enough to realize that time frame cutting off before the results were announced to submit a results appeal would not make sense. So I also just want to pull a quote for the next part of this because I think that it encapsulates a lot of how, anyway, I was told, and I quote, election is defined as a period of voting. I think the interpretation election was defined for us as a Senate, and I don't agree with the definition given to us. Okay, so first off, if we're going to define election, that is not the definition given by any reputable dictionary. It is not in Robert's Rules of Orders that we have to follow that election is a period of voting, is what I was told. So if we're going to define election, here are a few sourced definitions. So an act or process electing, that's Merriam-Webster. A formal group decision-making process by which a population chooses an individual to hold a public office. So that's just addressing that side of things. I have some other things that I wanted to address. I don't know how I am on time, but I want you all to think about the message that you're sending to the students that are watching. I'm out. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, is there further discussion on the motion? I want to just clarify, this motion is, it's typically like there's motions to reconsider, but this is a motion actually like, if this motion passes, we will have a new election. If it doesn't pass, we will have a new election. So that's what we're voting on. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
Motion.
Yeah, Vice President Teeter?
Does this motion have to have 2/3 or a simple majority?
It needs 2/3. But it's in our constitution that it needs 2/3 because it's, we're renewing the same motions. It's the same motion as last time. This is a motion that is, he's basically just bringing up the motion again from last time, from last week, and doing the same one. And so it need 2/3 again.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
President McGarity?
Yes, Senator Sands.
Yeah, I would like to yield my time to Senator Garrison.
Okay, Senator Garrison.
All right. Okay. So continuing on where I left off, I want you all to really think about the message that you're sending to the students that are watching right now. If you vote no on this, you are telling them that their votes don't matter and that they don't count. Is that really the message that you want to send? Is that really what you want to be remembered for? Because that will be your legacy in SGA if you vote no today. I also had it brought up to me that we need to be a body that stands by its values. And in this time of crisis, not doing an election will provide some sort of peace of mind to the students, knowing that they have some kind of solid body right now or elected officials. So I would say that you're definitely not giving them the peace of mind that you claim holding an election or not holding an election will bring. Clearly, there's outrage from the student body over this decision, and the students that brought that to you, and students brought that to you in person themselves today. And listen, I love Vice President Kale. I have nothing against her, and I think she would do a great job in this position. I think she did a great job this year. My intention is not to steal this election away from her. At the end of the day, if we hold another election, it is very likely that the exact same outcome could be the case. I mean, at this point, I feel like it's been made very clear to me that some people don't want me to have this position, which is fine. I kind of don't even want it anymore. But at this point, it's just a matter of principle. I think that Vice President Kale is very deserving of the office, but I also think that she deserves to win the office fairly in a real two-candidate election.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Your time is up. Okay. Let's see. Senator Spears.
Hi, guys. I'd first like to admonish the kind of language being used around here. Just because we have concerns about a runoff election happening does not mean that we simply do not care about the votes being cast. Whenever you're thinking about shared governance, you have to think about all outcomes. And I respect the civic ambition and duty of these students who came forward to explain their reasoning of why they think there should be a runoff. But there are also there's a plurality of opinions within this. And to make it so black and white, I think is doing a disservice to the information of the students. And that's why I think that given all the circumstances, given the absolute need to make sure that continued governance is effective, is efficient, and isn't thrown into absolute chaos throughout this pandemic, and we know there will be disparities against certain voting groups rather than others, I think that we should let the results stand as they were. It will not be perfect, but a resultant runoff election will be more imperfect. So it's not necessarily a choice of, and when doing certain governing processes, you have to look at which would be worse in this kind of scenario. This is an ideal scenario. President Davis itself said it's an unwinnable situation that we are faced with. We must confront it with a decent amount of sobriety and the ability to make clear judgments, and that's why I vote in favor of seeing the general elections results having stand.
Okay, Senator Oluwamisi.
Oh, yes. So I would like to raise in support to Senator Garrison's motion, simply because when I joined the SGA, we said we have to listen to students first. And in this case, you have a candidate that obviously have the right to appeal. So since we want to show like a very ethical face of the SGA, in this case, we have nothing to lose to run again the election. But I really hope that the exec will be cautious about the coronavirus in case the motion pass. And that's it. We have nothing to lose. If Vice President Kale has to win the election, then she will win the election. But in order to move forward, I think it's better that we run again the election. And I think you should all consider it and just to move forward. And I just want to clarify to Senator Garrison that I abstained because obviously last week it was like a senator who didn't want to lose. But now people are talking about it that we heard some students talking about it. So we just have to reconsider it and then do another election. And that will be as simple as it is. And at least we know that we move forward.
Okay, Senator Sander.
First of all, I don't think that everyone follows in one of the three categories mentioned. I think a lot of us are following and listening to our constituents, especially my class has seniors and a lot of other constituents I've talked to. They're worried about that even we don't know what's happening. And on this campus and like as a university, SGA should know like what's going on. And I just think this brings up a lot of uncertainties within our organization in a time where our constituents and the people that we are representing need stability. So I'm rising in opposition just for the sake of the constituents that we didn't hear from today, but are still out there.
Okay, Senator Beaver Tabor.
Hi, yes. So I'm going to speak on why I voted no last week and why I voted no. I'm going to vote no this week as well, solely because it seems like people have been questioning why we've been voting no. Basically, the sole reason why I'm voting no on this motion is similar to what Garrett and Ashland have said. Senator Spears and Senator Sander have said. Basically, right now, there is so much going on in the world, and it is hard to get a legitimate vote right now. It's tragic that that's the outcome it's came to, but I feel like right now having an election would not be fair and not be just. And if anything, having an election this late would result in less votes than the first election did. Moving forward, I feel like it's best that we just keep the results we have and just hope for the best moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Villano.
They answered my question. I'm good.
Okay. Senator Little.
Yes. Will Senator Garrison yield to the question?
Yes, I will.
Okay. So just so I heard you correctly from earlier in your statement, did you say that you didn't want the vice president of finance position anymore?
Okay, I didn't mean I would still love to have the position. I meant that saying as in like I'm not doing this at a point to get the position. It's not because I want to overturn what happened. I'm following through on this appeal because there is a matter of principle at stake here. There's an issue with the way that we made a decision as a body. And, you know, at the end of the day, if I don't win, that's not what this is about. It's not about me wanting to overturn the decision and for me to win somehow. That's not what I want. That's not why I'm still doing this. And also, I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone. I get very worked up, and I just kind of say things that come straight to my head. So I apologize to anybody that I may have offended.
You're good. And again, I was just making sure I was clarified on that because I mean, in the end, we're all friends here. But of course, this is a really obviously controversial time that we're going through at this moment. So just make sure everything's all good. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Senator Garrison, this is your second time to speak on this motion.
Can I save that for later?
Yeah. Okay. Senator Hall.
I would just like to rise in support of this motion as well. I would like to touch on something that was said earlier, that they don't think that we should have the election because it wouldn't be fair to our students because they didn't think that voter turnout would be good. I just want to say that the president was said before that us as senators, as I stated before, we have to be the ones out there pushing for voting to happen, and that has always been said. And I know we like to say that we like to do things that SGA has always done, and SGA senators have always been the people out there pushing for votes. So I feel like that we should just do this again if we are to get this appeal passed, and we should not let that stop us from voting in favor of this motion.
Okay, Senator Garrison, would you like to speak now on it or wait?
Sure, I'll go ahead and speak. So I want to just go over some of the things that are in the appeal really quickly. So arising from the decision that was made, there are three critical questions concerning the validity of the result that we had initially. So was the initial general election a two-candidate race? Was a majority of votes obtained by a single candidate? And does the removal of a candidate from a race warrant the nullification of any votes cast for that candidate? And in response to all of these, I would say that the answer is clearly no. So if we move straight into the constitutional questions, we first have to address how the events of this race fit into the guidelines set in place by the SGA Constitution. So there is no mention of candidate removal in the Constitution, and by effect, there's also no mention of how the SGA should proceed forward following the removal of a candidate for the race. So we're really setting the precedent here for this kind of issue. Since the removal of a candidate did occur, it must be assumed to be up to the interpretation of the Senate body on how to move forward. So the SGA Constitution states in Article 4, Section 3, subletter E, in all races in which there are only two candidates for an election, the general election shall be the final except in the event of a tie. So there is no question that by the end of the race, this election was a two-candidate race between myself and Jen Kale. However, there's also no question that prior to the forced removal of Devon Moore from the race, the 2020 VPF election was by no means a two-candidate race. Prior to his removal on the last day of voting, his name appeared on the ballot, and he could receive votes until that point. So following his removal from the race, the election became a two-candidate race. But up until that point, it was not. Therefore, the section that I read off earlier cannot apply to this race until after the point of Devon's removal. In addition to all the votes cast for Devon, all votes cast prior to the point of his removal would need to be voided in order to be in accordance with the aforementioned constitutional statute. And unless only the votes cast. Okay.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Senator Kramer.
So I want to reiterate the point that I made earlier, and that was that this election was clearly unconstitutional based not only on the points that many senators have mentioned throughout this discussion and the constitutional language that has been read, but also in the original statement from the Election Rules Committee. They stated, and I quote, "We acknowledge that up until the final day of voting, it was a three-person race." It was mentioned earlier that at the end of the race, it was only a two-person race because Devon had been removed, but the Election Rules Committee stated that it was a three-person race. So again, there's no way that you can argue that the last election was constitutional. But like I said earlier, a lot has changed in the past week. The circumstances are different. I don't think it would be impossible to get students to vote and to promote that and to have another election. But I voted yes to bring this motion back to the table because I think it's necessary for every single senator to make that decision. Last week, I feel like there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people didn't read the appeal or didn't understand the constitutionality of the issue. But I think everyone needs to make a personal decision now to sacrifice the constitutionality of that election if they think it's necessary to maintain that ruling and not hold another election. So please take that into account.
Okay, Senator Murphy.
I'd just like to yield my time to Senator Garrison.
Okay, Senator Garrison.
All right, so picking up from where I left off, unless only the votes cast for Devon or cast after Devon's removal are going to be the ones that are counted, we cannot consider this to be a 2-candidate race. So it must be considered a 3-candidate race, and my placing second would have warranted a runoff election between Jen Kale and myself regardless. So moving on to the next constitutional question, we have to go to Article 4, Section 3, subletter G of the Constitution that holds if one candidate does not receive a majority of the votes cast in the election for executive officers, the 2 candidates receiving the highest number of votes will have a runoff election. So this has been touched on and off throughout this whole process. But it's vital to note that this provision calls for a candidate receiving a majority of the votes cast, not a plurality. The difference being that a majority is 50% plus 1, a plurality is just whoever got the most votes. So the language of this clause also implies that all votes cast should be considered when determining whether a candidate receives a majority. Vice President Kale did not receive a majority of the votes cast. She received a plurality of the votes, which means the election is constitutionally required to go into a runoff. So really, this issue it's very, very much black and white. Our Constitution calls for us to do one thing.
Yes. Senator
in the Constitution, there is nowhere that it explicitly states in the events of X events that this will be a 2 or 3 candidate race. It's the assumption that that could be there, and that could be many people's views, and we can argue based off that. But the Constitution does not directly back up that it was a 3-person race the entire time, or that it was a 2-person race. It is merely a matter of interpretation and opinion and other associated factors.
Okay, Senator Perry.
Yes, I would just like to give my time to.
Yes, Senator Kramer.
Sorry, in response to what Senator Spears was stating, I already read the statement from the Election Rules Committee, where it states up until the final day of voting, it was a 3-person race, and they supported a new selection and stated that
are you asking
basically the same.
Or
I believe she's clarifying.
Sorry, that was
the conditions of the
I'm
law.
clarifying that they are the ruling body who determines the constitutionality of an election, and they determined that it was a 3-person race and that a new election was warranted, and so that's where that constitutional authority comes from.
And also just no one else can speak unless I call on you. You can do points of information, points of clarification, but just make sure I call on you in any circumstances. Yeah.
A point of further clarification, though, and I do agree with Senator Kramer and what she said. The Election Rules Committee is the governing body, but many people are using purely the constitutional argument when, in fact, that is not really a valid argument. It is indirectly, it can be possibly argued that way, and the Election Rules Committee is the governing body to these sorts of issues. But to say that it is just purely and blanketly constitutional, I believe, is oversimplifying things and incorrect.
Point of
clarification for everyone. Clarifications are not to be used for opinions at all. Just a reminder, everyone. Yeah, Vice President Watkins.
Well, I'm just saying that SGA has checks and balances, and so even when we have motions or appeals made by governing bodies from our committees, that's why we have Senate to vote on those appeals made, and Senate made that decision on that election appeal, and it's in their right to make that decision.
Okay, Senator Perry.
Yes, I would just like to yield my time to Senator Garrison.
Okay, so the math was gone over earlier about how 1,366 votes were cast, and only 900 and however many it was, 986, I think, were considered. So it is undeniable, even if you deny the other constitutional question, it is absolutely undeniable to say that Jen Kale did not receive a majority of the votes. That's just factually incorrect. So I can't really understand how this decision was made in the first place, but because our Constitution does seemingly call for a runoff election here. I also just want to point out that the Ways and Means Committee, did I already address that? I think I already did. I did, didn't I? Well, I think I'm pretty much done. I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but I would just urge you guys to vote yes on this. Our Constitution really, I mean, it requires us to go into a runoff in this scenario. And a vote against this appeal is a vote against the 380 students whose votes aren't counting right now. It's a vote against our Constitution. It is a vote against transparency, because those 380 students, not all of them even know that their votes count.
Again, I'd like to urge a point of clarification that the Constitution does not dictate necessarily anything. These could be opinions. They may be valid opinions based off your opinion. I'm not to judge. But the Constitution does not deliberately or does not officially say that this is how this has to be done. It is, again, up to our interpretation based off the facts at hand.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this motion?
Point of inquiry.
Yeah, Senator Garrison.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
So when I was discussing where the decision for this for the election to be ruled in the way it was the first time, could you explain to me how this decision was made?
Are you saying like the decision that like Vice President Kale winning? You're asking how we came to that?
Yes. Was there a body that made that decision, or was it the Constitution that required us to do that?
I would say both. So the Constitution says like that if it's, if it's a two-person election, which is after Devon was kicked out, that's the way we saw it, because only two candidates were there. The person that has the most votes of the two wins. That's how we always do it. But we always get an advisor. I'm there, the executive president's there, and then the chair of the election committee is always there to verify results. So we verify results, and that's how it's decided, by looking at the Constitution as well. Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call vote, Vice President. Well, actually, before we get to that, I'm going to further explain one more time. We're voting on Senator Garrison's motion. So this is the same motion from last week. Senator Ford, I'll get to you in a second. If this vote passes, like if you vote yes on this, that means you want a new election. And then if you vote no, it means you don't want a new election. You don't want to do that. And it needs 2/3 again to pass. That's 2/3 of the Senate body, not of who's here, because it's explicitly stated in our Constitution that it's 2/3 of the people that are on this body, and that's 41 voting members. Senator Ford.
Hey, I actually wanted to talk about the motion. Is that okay? I have a lag on.
Yeah, you can discuss. Go ahead, 2 minutes.
I would actually like to clarify a few things and rise in opposition to this, because I disagree that this has merit, and I think some of the language we are using is a little underhanded. If we really do want to consider this a 3-person race in which we would have to have a runoff, the fact that we are forcing this to be between the person who received the most votes and the person who received the 3rd most votes is not a good precedent to set. If this
Point
was
of clarification, I received the 2nd most votes, not the 3rd most votes.
Okay. Senator Ford.
That was all. My bad.
Okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion on this motion?
Point of information.
Yes, Senator Randall.
Did Ways and Means didn't they say that it was a 3-person race? Or the election rules?
Election rules. So yeah, I'm going to yield that question to Senator Bolano.
What was the question again? Did we say it was a 3-person race?
Yes.
In our motion last week, the motion did say yes, that up until the final day, it was a 3-person race, and it was our recommendation that we hold a runoff race between both Senator Garrison and Vice President Kale.
So, for further the point of information, wouldn't that have some merit against the election, since the election results said that it had a 2-person and election roll said it was 3-person? Who do we go off of?
Well, here's a big issue, and I think that's something we're going to have to address going forward. There's not enough clarity with any of this. There's not enough clarity with how it's written out in the Constitution. There's not enough clarity with the responsibility of the Election Rules Committee, and it needs to be drawn out, and it needs to actually be stated exactly what should happen in this situation every time, because clearly it's a problem. And I mean, I can't really tell you. It was the committee's position that because it was a 3-person race up until the final day, that we believed we should have given Senator Garrison the benefit of the doubt to have another election. But the reality is, it's either one. I mean, the Constitution says one thing, and the committee tries to follow the Constitution to every ability we can. But yeah, that was kind of where the committee made their decision with it.
Okay.
Okay,
Is there any
thank you.
further discussion on the motion? Okay. Roll call vote, Vice President Walkings.
Aldi,
No.
Andrews, Barber,
No.
Bassam, Beaver,
No.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Kale,
Same.
Cheek,
No.
Chu,
No.
Kramer,
No.
Crawford,
No.
Dang,
No.
Diafodi, DePersia,
No.
Farnham,
No.
Ford,
No.
Garrison,
Abstain.
Hall,
Yes.
Hernandez,
Abstain.
Karuma,
Abstain.
Langston,
No.
Lou,
Yes.
Little,
No.
I abstain, McClure, Murphy,
Yes.
Aluyemisi,
Yes.
Patel,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Portillo,
Yes.
Rouse,
No.
Randall,
Yes.
Sander,
No.
Sands,
Yes.
Spears,
No.
Spites,
No.
Teeter,
No.
Van Ash,
Yes.
Villano,
No.
Wesley,
Abstain.
Woodruff,
No.
with 11 noes, 11 yeses, 19 noes, and 6 abstentions, the motion does not pass.
Okay. Is there any more new business? Are there any announcements?
Yes.
Is that Senator Kramer? Or Senator
Yeah.
Sander? Okay, Senator Kramer, go ahead.
Oh, well, actually, point of information. Did Vice President Teeter, what was the motion or whatever he presented earlier?
Can you?
Yes, I presented. But may I use that, Madam President?
Oh, if you want to screen share, you can. You don't have to. If you want to explain it, either one.
Okay. So basically, I made a previous notice. I'll go ahead and do it. In accordance with UCA SGA Special Rules of Order, Constitution, and Bylaws, I present Senate Bill SB 011, allowing Greek letters, and I'll send this to Vice President Lockings to be added to the minutes.
Okay, any more announcements?
I have an announcement.
Yes, Vice President Lockings.
Forgot to bring this up in my points, but thank you for everyone who voted for the end of the year awards. And so next Senate meeting, I went through and like tallied all of the people. And so next Senate meeting, I'll be like announcing who won or talking with President McGarity how we're going to do that, but you will still be getting your awards and everything.
Okay, are there any more announcements?
I have another question.
Yes, Senator Kramer.
When will the video of our meeting with President Davis be shared?
He had the weekends. I mean, I don't think he would have done any business over the weekend. I'll have to ask him. I haven't received it yet. I haven't checked my email in a few hours, but I'm assuming he'll get it to me within a day or two. Once he gets it to me, I'll post it. Okay, are there any more?
I have a question.
Yes, who has a question?
This Senator.
Yes, go ahead.
So someone had asked me because I got on the call late the other day with President Davis.
Okay.
Time difference thing. But someone had asked if he spoke about the refunds that students are supposed to be getting.
Are you talking about like the housing refund?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know for that they're giving back about $3 million to students, just because there's a lot of students and that's the amount that they'll be giving back.
No, I think they were asking like if he said, I guess, what date or around what time would it be given out?
Oh, I haven't heard an exact timeline. I know they're working on it. They're going through every student one by one because for some students, like say you have like a scholarship, like a full scholarship from UCA, like, oh wait, sorry, yeah, if it's like an honors scholarship, like they're paying for you to live in like the honors like Ferris, I don't think they'd be giving you that money back because it's UCA. So they have to look at each student on a case-by-case basis. And so it's going to take probably a bit. I'm not sure. Again, they didn't give me like a time frame, but it'll take like some time since they have to do it each person.
Okay.
Yeah. Are there any more questions about that? Okay. Are there any more announcements?
I have another announcement.
Senator Kramer.
So me and Senator Portillo met with one of our deans today just to talk about some of the other steps that like faculty are taking in response to COVID, since like no other like solution has been like put out for all the faculty to take. And some interesting things that we learned are that the Arkansas